So I wanted to have a discussion about your first years in the game, and if you just picked up the base game for Stellaris and you're wondering by yourself, how on earth am I going to play this? This is information overload. It's totally understandable. Paradox games are renowned for being complex. Now, Stellaris is relatively easy compared to the other ones, like Crusader Kings 2 and Europa Universalis 4, as well as Hearts of Iron, etc. But it doesn't mean that the game itself is not conflicted. Paradox is rather known for having issues with tutorials and stuff like that. So do make sure you read the tutorial before you dive into the game. But in the meantime, let's go and take a look at what your first few years should look like in the game. Now, for the sake of this discussion, I've selected the United Nations of Earth as one of the base species that you can select. I'm not going to do anything special here because it doesn't really influence the decisions that we're going to make at the start of the game. And, of course, all the text and all that stuff is not particularly important. So let's do our very first stuff. The game is currently paused up here, and that's pretty much what we need to know. But let's observe where we are at. There's a couple of areas nearby that are potentially interesting. In our nearby area, at least, there is a bunch of gas nebulas nearby. Gas nebulas are rather important, so we're going to scout those out early on. Now, we have our first fleets, so let's split those up. We get 3 corvettes for free right at the start of the game. So let's send out our ships as soon as we can, just to scout out the nearby area and see what we can find. Now, warp drive is probably the easiest type of FTL that is in the game. The more advanced type, like wormhole drive and stuff like that, is fun, sure. But for a beginner, I would highly suggest that using warp drive is the best way of doing things. Let's take a look here, what we can find in the nearby area. Let's not unpause just yet. Let's take a look at our technology. So in the technology window, we've got a couple options here. Under physics, in this particular case, it's generally randomized, so let's go for the solar panel network. Obviously, colony ship is going to be the first technology that you want. Planetary unification is great as well, but getting those colony ships out as soon as possible is going to be very important. And for this one, I would go for nanocomposite armor. Or actually, the improved spaceport is kind of nice as well, although it is kind of expensive, so let's go for a cheaper one instead. So as you can see, everything will take 70 months to do, which is way too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our policy and edicts and engage society research grants as well as encourage free thought. So what the Society Research Grants does, it will boost our research speed in society by 30% while lowering the research speed by the others by 10%. This is fine for now because we want to get out of there as soon as we possibly can. Then there's Encourage Free Thought, which increases research speed by another 10% while adding a ethics divergence modifier of 15%. Don't worry about the ethics modifier at this point of the game. It doesn't really impact things at all. They are planetary-based modifiers. They change the ethics of a species, and whilst we're only confined to one planet, it doesn't really matter. Also, if you look at Earth, our capital world will have an ethics diversions modifier of -10, which is great for us. So that is set up right now. Our ships are going out there. Secondly, let's build another science ship, because you do want another one. And let's set up a survey in our system here. Let's have the construction ship track the science ship while we're at it. So select the construction ship, right-click on the science ship, and it will now follow it everywhere. So all of our ships will now start moving out into our system for our first moves in the game. Now, the spaceships, the warp-capable ships will try to get to the closest border possible in order to jump out. As soon as we get our second science ship out, however, we're going to want to send those out to any sort of planets that we found nearby. Of course, we will most likely find ourselves with first contact very soon as well, so we want to watch out for that. In the meantime, we also will keep an eye on our science ship and our construction ship as they go around the solar system. So Mercury being scanned right now. We won't find anything at the moment, and it looks like we find ourselves 2 planets already. So we've got 2 continental worlds found. As soon as our science ship is out, which it is, We're going to add a leader to it. It's going to cost a bunch of resources, so we're going to find ourselves a leader that has a decent amount of points in any sort of anomaly research. In this case, we find ourselves an anomaly research speed of plus 35, which is great. So immediately, we will send out this into this system and only research the planet that has any sort of habitability bonus on it. And then we'll send it out to the next one as well. Mainly because we want to have an eye as soon as possible on every single one of these planets to see what sort of modifiers are there and whether or not we can exploit them to the max very early on. We want to grab as much territory as possible. There is a couple of aliens here. So we will have first contact very shortly with the Tajanki. At least I believe they are the Tajanki. Let's take a look if we can find anything. No, they're actually an alien species nearby. So we already have some neighbors that we have discovered. So if we go into our situation log up here, you'll find that we can spend society research in order to figure out who these aliens are. It will give us influence as well. But at this moment in the game, I don't necessarily feel that this is important enough for us to put any sort of pressure behind. Anyway, let's go back towards our main solar system and find that we've managed to get a bunch of resources already. So let's get set up our first mining station, and yes, we are going to go for minerals. Minerals are the key component at the start of the game. Forget about your science. Science is not important at all in terms of mining. You want to get your economy up to speed first, and it starts with minerals and then energy. It looks like Bernard's star and Sirius 3 has actually managed to get a bunch of research on it, which is great. Let's take a look at this planet. It is a significant... Oh, okay, so this shit can happen as well. We have ourselves a protectors nearby. So this is a fallen empire, and they can awaken at some point as well. So fallen empire are a super strong entity within space that may or may not be aggressive. In this case, we have a stagnant ascendancy. They're holy guardians. That means that there's a bunch of utopian planets or Gaia worlds nearby. They're called holy worlds. Do not colonize them. It's very important that you do not colonize those. So let's go for a positive thing here. Their wisdom must be great, as the empire that these aliens have found appears to be very old, and their level of technology is far ahead of ours. And considering we're xenophiles, yeah, there we go. There's a continental world in here. We cannot actually do anything with that just yet, which is a shame. In the meantime, these aliens are very close to us and are potentially going to be a problem. So what do we want to do here? Well, we can endeavor to build a influence outpost somewhere. Or we can try to survey a planet that is nearby. Now, we've discovered a planet, which is a continental world, size 22, which is almost the biggest size that you can get. This is the perfect candidate for our first colony. And why is that? Because of the amount of space that it has. It's very important that your first planets are as large as possible. Why is this? Because of the amount of modifiers that come with technology. The more planets you own, the more cost you will endure when it comes to technology. So, for instance, if we go to our technology and we take a look at this here, you see that there is no modifier in place. If we have another planet in place, our technology will cost more. And we'll get to that later on as well. We got an anomaly. As you can see, the anomaly is a failure risk of 52. But due to our researcher being fairly good, it's been reduced already. It was originally 60. It's now -7. So what should you do in this situation? Leave it for now. Wait for our scientists to be better. In the meantime, we also have a side quest, the Voltum Star Assembly. So what this is basically an Easter egg hunt. We'll be sent around the galaxy to find a certain amount of planets that can give us new stuff. such as the homeworld of the Voltum Star Assembly. I believe this one gives a Gaia world at the end of the series. There's also the Cybrex, which gives you a Broken Ring world. So there's a bunch of really interesting little campaigns. And this is why the start of the game is so much fun, because there's a lot of individual storylines going on. The mid-game sadly doesn't have a lot of this, which is where it slows down a little bit, which is a real shame. All right, so this construction ship. Can we build a frontier outpost here? No, we cannot. We do not have the resources for it. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to continue developing the mining stations within our sphere of influence. And that's exactly what we want. The science ship is currently on its way to survey this world down in here. As we have encountered our first species. What is this? The chimeras. These look like pirates. So every once in a while you will encounter pirates in the game as well, or at least any sort of neutral entities. These are dangerous and you should not engage them at all. They are highly frustrating to deal with if you don't know how to. They will never leave their own systems, and they will give you bonuses to technology if you manage to defeat them and actually research their husks, which is kind of important. So you notice I just built my first Corvette as well. I'm on the verge of getting my first colony out, which is rather important. I'm actually going to cancel the ship because I need enough for the first colony ship, which is going to be up in 33 months. Actually, I can afford to build one, so that's fine. But yeah, the first colony ship is almost nearly ready to be sent out. Now we've managed to completely survey our starting system. We got a lot of energy and a lot of minerals in it. And we want to get all those minerals researched as soon as possible. Now you notice that I clicked here and I went like click and then click, right? There's a fast way of doing this. Hold your shift key. Let's quickly just disable all the orders by just sending a standard move order. Habitable world survey. This is just a bunch of events. Hold your shift key, click survey down in here, click on the world. You will automatically add the orders, and then click on the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. You don't need to go and right click on the actual thing in order to survey these worlds quickly, which is incredibly useful. I am incredibly tempted to build a frontier outpost in this particular system, because I'm really worried about the aliens over here. Oh, God, they've got wormhole drive, apparently. I'm kind of worried about the aliens in this system. There's the Gaia world I was talking about. So that's a Gaia world called Pristine Jewel. This is a holy world from the Protectors. Do not colonize this. It's also a size 10 only, which means it's not that great. So let's take a look here at our setup. 27 months, which is pretty decent. We got some alien vessels in here. These are, these are just standard aliens that do not impact us in any way, shape, or form. These guys will roam around though, so they are potentially dangerous. So you may want to watch out for those. And in the meantime, continue exploring with your ships to as many systems as you can, especially in areas that involve any sort of nebulae. Nebulae, as I mentioned, are incredibly important in the mid to late game because of the strategic resources that they generate. So we want to get as much visibility on the map as possible to see where enemy empires are and to see where our potential expansion areas are. 18 months till our first technology. Again, Alpha Centauri A, a 50% failure risk. Let's leave it for now. It's not worth it to lose our science ship over this. Got another science ship ready. There's a bunch of aliens in here. Okay, which ones are these? These are interesting. They're space cows, and they are set to aggressive. Very interesting. Space cows are very rarely set to aggressive, unless somebody has been messing around with them. So once you send your spaceships or one of your science ships into an area that does have enemies in it, they will automatically remove themselves from that area. Ooh, another planet. A continental world size 20. Let's go and survey it as soon as we can, because that's another potential area to expand into. This one, we don't need to touch this for now. Let's go and see if we can get in here. We can't get to this system because our warp drive is not strong enough to get there yet. And right now, we're just preparing for the first real combat event in the game, which is Space Pirates. It's coming up fairly soon. As soon as we have our first... we cannot survey this because Frontier Outpost. Yeah, I thought as much. So there is a size 22 and a size 23 in here as well. We can terraform that later on. So this system is actually potentially exceptionally strong. Alright, so the science ship is up in here. Finally, a decent anomaly. There's the colony ship that we wanted, so let's get some new research going. Growth time -10 is very useful. But immediately at this point, science ship has been done. What do? We go to a policy and edicts. We disable these two because we want the influence points. We go to our expansion planner. We find the planet that we want, which is this one. Skorom 4 in this case. So you can see there is a lot of stuff going on this planet. Now, this is kind of important. Your first colony ship will cost 350 minerals, depending on your leader. Now, your first positioning of your spacecraft, of your initial colony, is going to be very important. Why? Well, because of something called adjacency bonuses. This planet in particular doesn't have many because of the way everything spawns in here, but there are still a couple of things that we can exploit. Now, adjacency bonuses is +1 to everything around it, but it only counts for energy, food, and minerals. However, your first colony will also require food. Right now, looking at this place, putting it on this tile that has 2 food on it is going to be pretty much the best one to do it. Later on, we'll be able to clear these dangerous wildlife as well as this toxic kelp for an additional bonus to food or minerals. However, getting the additional food right off the get-go is rather important. Let's roll ourselves a new name. Let's call it Zeng. And let's get this colony underway. As you can see, the icon is already there. We're ready to colonize it. We have found ourselves another potential colony, which is the one that we've just researched down in here. It doesn't have any special modifiers on it. We cannot colonize it because we're lacking a lot of influence points, but that's fine. Okay, we've managed to establish contact, or at least the aliens have managed to establish contact with us. This is our second contact outside of this fallen empire. Interesting. They are a despotic empire. What does this mean? It means that they don't like us at all. It also means that their border extrusion, i.e. the size of the border, is a lot bigger. Their colony influence cost is a lot lower, which means they can expand a lot quicker as well. They are xenophobic, which means they will not like us, and they are fanatic collectivists, which means they are basically slavers. We are delighted to meet them, of course, and they are not going to like us at all because of xenophobia and because we are individualists, and they will immediately close their border. What is important at this moment in time? What is important is that we mess with them as soon as we possibly can, and by that, messing with them is basically colonizing this planet. Let's also get a bunch of combat ships underway. That is also going to be important. And this is a fairly rare event that can happen. This is called the Sublight Exploration Probes. Sublight Exploration Probes, in combination with the Ancient Cult, is one of the basic events that can pop up for your empire. Basically, we need to go and find these probes in space. And what it does is it opens up this menu where we can find ancient probes. Basically, we can get a bunch of events out of this. At this point, however, you should be able to get your party underway, and your first colony ship will be coming out very quickly after this. And this was just a standard 20-minute overview of how to start your game. I noticed the game can be extremely overwhelming at first. There's a lot of stuff going on. There is a lot of complicated systems that can really mess with things. For instance, your first colony ship comes out. Colony ships cost a lot of upkeep, which means that you're going to need to deal with a fairly healthy economy. There's a supply probe. Let's leave it for now. Let's go for this colonization and then wrap up this episode, because as soon as we colonize, another event will happen, and which will be the Age of Space Piracy. And that's why we're cranking out these corvettes right now. There's our first colony. It will grow very rapidly. Of course, never really run the game at this speed because it really messes things up. Let's go and research this little thing up in here. And let's send our science ships out to these little pulsating areas. And now we wait for the colony to be established so our economy can fill up a little bit again. And also, let's get a bunch of energy mining stations. We got our first engineering building. There's a subspace anomaly. Okay, let's just go for something simple. Interesting. The USSN McLaughlin. Interesting. It's detected a massive subspace anomaly in the Procyon system.
Situation log updated.
Oh, a subspace anomaly, a void cloud, which means that you can get something out of it. Doesn't matter. Let's leave it alone for now. You can combat it later. But yeah, that will basically cover the start of the game. There's a lot of stuff going on in the galaxy. It is incredibly fun to start up your game and basically going through the different scenarios. Of course, I found myself a fallen empire right off the bat. There is a xenophobic empire right next door, which we will need to contain. You now know how to very quickly get your colonies underway, how to scout, and taking it from there. Of course, if you have any of the expansions, at this point, the game will become a lot more complex, and I do hope that you're going to take a look at some of the upcoming videos to see how all that goes. But this was a general overview of the first 6 years of your gameplay in Stellaris. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out some of the other videos regarding mechanics of the more complicated systems within the game. And if you want to be updated on more ways of playing the game, feel free to drop it a subscribe or a like. If you didn't like the video, of course, the dislike button is there as well. You can hit that with all your manner. The galaxy is your oyster. Enjoy Stellaris. If you got any questions, just pop them into the comments. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other.